Okay, I am going to attempt to explain what FileSharper does, or why you should care. This is Visual Studio. It's a .NET programming environment, and a lot of other things. And in Visual Studio here, I have my latest processor that I added to FileSharper. This is the code to take all the files that have been found in a search and zip them up into a file that you dump to the desktop or wherever you want it to be. It is 165 lines of code, and that is not a lot. And I did it this evening in an hour. Well, no, I guess I spent a good part of the day on it. But anyway, mostly finished it up in a few hours. And it's not necessarily all that great. You could probably find a zip utility to do everything that this little zipper thing does for free on the internet. There's a good one called 7-zip actually, or you could use FileZip. But what the advantage of using FileSharper is that you can mix and match functionality. It's more of a scripting environment, kind of a visual scripting environment than it is just a utility to zip files. I run it here from Visual Studio. I've seen this before maybe on the Facebooks. This is where you set up a search. You're going to look through your file system, or maybe through a list of files, or maybe you're going to watch a directory to see if any files get dumped into it. The idea here is that it's extensible, and you can eventually make it do whatever you want by adding functionality in these little pickers, basically. So you can add a new file source so that instead of searching through a directory recursively or something, you, like I say, watch on a folder to see if new stuff comes in, or here I've got the ability to just add a list of file names like c:\foo.txt. So you could do several of those and base your search on that, but I'm going to recursively search the directory that has FileSharper in it, so that would be in my Documents directory. Oh, whoa. I don't know what that was. So like the Documents directory, go to wherever I'm keeping that, GitHub, FileSharper, select that folder, and then I'm going to run my file processor that I just added, the zip files processor, on every file that gets returned from that search. So I'm not doing anything based on any of these conditions here, and I'm not generating output that I think anyone would be interested in. My whole purpose is to come in here, search directory recursively for C# files. Oh, I didn't change that. star.cs. Okay, now it will search recursively for C# files. And it's going to do a zip file based on the entire search. So there's one zip file, and all these files, as they get found, will get dumped into that zip. And I'm going to put a containing folder around them so that when I unzip it, they don't spam my desktop. I'm going to put it on the desktop, and I'm going to call it csfiles.zip, and I'm going to overwrite that file if it exists, and now I run my search. Okay, so in that directory, FileSharper found all of these lovely files. They're all C# files, and now if we go to my desktop, we see that there is somewhere a file called csfiles.zip, and if we look inside of it, there's nothing. That is not what I intended. Oh, there's a C# file. Okay, that's what I told it to do. Great. So and inside there, you can see all these C# files that got bundled up okay. And so there's an example of one way you could use FileSharper. But the point about FileSharper is that it's not a zip utility, or it's not a reporting utility. It could be a lot of things. You can use it for whatever you want. And if you're a developer, you may find that it's easier to write yourself quick little scripts in Visual Studio that hook into this existing framework for searching file systems, things like that. So you can add your little bit of functionality. It might be a condition that you want to check for in a file, or a particular output that you want to print to a printed result, or in this case you might want to add an action like this processor that turns out zip files. But the idea is that it's pluggable and it's easy to use for a developer, and hopefully eventually someday may be useful for the average user, but it's probably going to remain primarily a technical tool. The end.